I don't like Reservoir Dogs. I've never thought it was a great movie. And
Really?
usually people give a double take, like, what are you talking about? That's a classic.
Yeah. What are you
It's a
talking
cult
about?
favorite. Well, if you go back, somebody made a documentary. I don't know who it was back in the day about how that movie was a ripoff of a Hong Kong film called City of Fire. You can look into it. I'm sure there's
Oh,
a lot online about it. You go to Reddit, but most of what you'll see online is how people have ripped off Quentin Tarantino more than
mm,
he's ripped off other people, because that's true too. He had a lot of copycats, especially in the 90s. There were a lot of other filmmakers trying to imitate his style, not
right.
realizing that he borrowed a lot from other filmmakers too. So
Like in terms of style or in terms of dialogue,
in
in
terms of,
terms of
his style, his dialogue, it was, Pulp Fiction's a very good name, because that's what he was imitating, was these old novels, these old dirty stories that you could get. They were called pulp fiction. They were cheap dime store novels, but they were full of action. They were full of sex, and they were full of violence, and that was the kind of stuff he was imitating. But Tarantino was a movie geek. He worked in a video store, and so he had just immersed himself in classic movies and underground movies and hard to find movies, foreign films. And so he would sprinkle little things like that in his movies. So
right, right.
there's a fine line between paying homage and stealing. Some people would say he's stealing, some would say he's paying homage, but there's a famous saying that, talent borrows, genius steals. So if he's stealing, I guess that
Mm-hmm.
means he's a genius. But people would say that Reservoir Dogs was plagiarized, that he stole almost the entire movie from this Hong Kong film called
Wow.
City of Fire. But that's not my reason for not liking it. That doesn't matter to me, because if you are a student of cinema, of the history of film, then you know that so many things are borrowed, so many things are stolen.
Oh,
Wes
absolutely.
Anderson is one of my favorite directors, and he will take a line from a movie and just put it into his movie. He'll take a scene that inspired something and he'll put it in his movie. He does this kind of thing. Lots of
You
directors
can
do
do
that.
that? Is it legal to do that?
I mean, it's. I don't know about the legality. Actually, I don't know where the line is,
Mm.
but there's no way for people to really know. A lot of times, people don't know. In terms of structuring and creating interesting films, he's a great filmmaker.
Mhm.
There's no question. It's the dialogue a lot of times, and it's the characters a lot of times. But Reservoir Dogs in particular, I couldn't stand the dialogue. I couldn't stand. It was
It was
so.
too raunchy.
It was not. No, not that. It didn't work. A
It
lot of
didn't
times
work.
the dialogue, it pulls me out of the movie.
So you're talking about the opening scene where they were talking about Madonna like a virgin. They're talking
Yes,
about
that's my least favorite. Yeah, the
really.
whole Madonna speech by Tarantino is the worst thing in any of his movies.
You see, the pain is reminding a machine what it was once like to be a virgin. Hence, like a virgin.
It is so obnoxious. It's so unnecessary, mainly because it's him that's delivering it.
Mm.
It's like, I know that you think this is cool or you think it's funny, but it's neither one. And
It's
this is my
making
feeling
yeah.
about Tarantino overall, is that he was a movie geek, he was a movie nerd, he worked in a video store, and it's like a lot of times his writing makes me think of a nerd who's really trying hard to be cool.
Dorks. They look like a couple of dorks.
Ha ha ha! You're closed, motherfucker.
I'm not Mr. Cool.
Right.
I was a nerd, and so when you're in the cool group and you see a guy that's trying really hard to be cool, it's kind of a turnoff. Tarantino's strengths, though, he's one of the last true filmmakers that's creating real content. He's not relying on CGI, computer generated images.
True.
He's got real sets and he's got real places, and like you watch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, everything is real. These are real cars and real buildings. It's not computer generated to make it look like the 60s. No, it looks authentic. Yeah, it's a very good period piece, and he's good at that. He's good at creating very stylish sets and visuals. His characters are interesting. His stories are interesting, but I just find him a little bit overrated when it comes to the characters and some of the dialogue. I know I'm in the minority. I know that most people love him. So,
but I only saw that in his first few movies, like in Death Proof, Reservoir Dogs. I think he was just trying to get it out of his system.
Right.
If you look at Inglorious Bastards, is there something in the dialogue that is unnecessary?
That's a good movie. I think that I think one of my issues with Tarantino is that his best movies are the ones that he's not in. When he shows up, it's usually
It's
not
just
good. Yeah, Django
Uh,
Unchained, great movie until he shows up at
it is
the end. It's like, why?
with an Australian accent.
With
Hello,
the
mate.
worst Australian accent ever.
Hey, white boy. Shut up, Black. You ain't got nothing to say I want to hear.
How'd you like to make $11,000?
The are you talking about? You big damn Blackie. We're not bandits.
The only line in Inglorious that I think of seemed a little too clever. It wasn't even a line. It's the scene where the Germans figure out that one of the characters is not German because of the way he holds up his fingers.
Englishman, get himself away.
How do you do that?
He ordered 3 glasses. We order 3 glasses. That's the German 3.
There's nothing wrong with that, but I just can see Tarantino going, well, people don't know this. I'm gonna educate you. And I might be being nitpicky with that, but that really was a good movie. I think that's one of his best movies, if not his best movie. I think Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and that are probably my favorites that he's made. But even those have little issues like the foot fetish thing, which, you can't talk about Tarantino without mentioning.
Can't talk about Tarantino without the foot fetish. It's got to be in there. Every movie.
Yeah, it comes across a little creepy and a little unnecessary. Like, we don't, you know what? You can look at feet on your own time. You don't have to put them in your movie. I don't need to. I don't need to look at Margot Robbie's dirty feet. Now, one thing I will give him credit for too is that because he loves cinema, he loves old movies, and he's good at bringing back old movie stars and TV stars and puts them in his movies. Like you see Tom Wopat, who's Luke Duke, show up in Django Unchained, and Don Johnson, he brings him
Don
in.
Johnson, yeah. He was funny in that movie.
Yeah, and also Franco Nero, who played Django in the old spaghetti western.
Yes, yeah.
He brought him in. So, he's good at that. He's good at bringing nostalgic actors from his childhood and mine. So I appreciate him for that kind of stuff. He definitely deserves credit.
Yeah.
So
my favorite thing about Tarantino is that he knows how to play dialogue. He knows how people react when certain characters say something.
Right.
You can almost remember every line they say.
You're sheltering enemies of the state, are you not?
Yes.
You're sheltering them underneath your floorboards, aren't you?
Yes.
Point out to me the areas where they're hiding.
Well, he has won awards for his screenwriting. That's the thing. Like, it's not just the fans that like him, the critics love him. He's won Golden Globes. Might have won Oscars as well. He's won for his writing. So there is definitely some value in it. I will say this. I agree with what you were saying earlier. It probably is his earlier stuff.
It's
I think
earlier
as
stuff.
the years have gone on, I think he's gotten better. I think in his last few movies, he's definitely gotten better at those kinds of things. And I'm not finding myself as annoyed. I'm actually enjoying it. I thought Once Upon a Time in Hollywood was very good. I enjoyed that.
He evolved.
I enjoyed that whole movie.
Yeah.
And speaking of bringing people back, how could I say bring people back and resurrect them and not mention John Travolta? Because, Pulp Fiction, you're probably too young to know this, but John Travolta had not been in any big movies in a while, and so that movie resurrected his career. After Pulp Fiction, he was in a movie every year for a long time.
You know what they call a quarter pounder with cheese in Paris?
They don't call it a quarter pounder with cheese?
Oh man, they got the metric system. They wouldn't know what the fuck a quarter pounder is.
And what do they call it?
They call it Royale with cheese.
Royale with cheese.
That's right.
He was in Scream. Was there a movie about? Well, no, not Scream. He was a guy that he'd record audio. You seen that movie?
You're talking about Blowout?
Blowout.
Yeah, that was early '80s. But if you look at the gap between like that and Pulp Fiction, I think he did the Look Who's Talking movies in the late '80s. So those were kind of popular, but other than that, he was not a huge movie star.
Yeah,
and Pulp Fiction brought him back to being one of the biggest A-list movie stars. From then, the rest of the '90s, he was in movie after movie after movie.
Yeah.
So,
sure. Now let me talk about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
okay,
the first time I saw it, here's the thing about Tarantino, especially that movie. Every time you watch that movie, you experience something new. The first time I watched
Right.
that movie, I was very confused because there were two storylines. First storyline was the friendship of Brad Pitt and Leo. Then
Right.
you put in the story of Margot Robbie, which was supposed to be the murdered actress. What's her name?
Yeah, Sharon Tate.
Sharon Tate. Yeah, that movie is really like a celebration of golden years of LA, like
Yeah.
beautiful LA.
It's a very nostalgic movie about
Nostalgic
that time
movie,
period.
yes, and hippies, and it's kind of like a celebration of American culture. Like Forrest Gump is a celebration of American culture in a way.
Right.
Like I get
Right.
a glimpse of what America was in that time.
Well, I hope though you're not going to Tarantino for a history lesson because he's
no,
he's 100% changing history because in real life Sharon Tate was murdered.
Sharon, yeah, I knew
Yeah.
that. I knew that.
And it is funny. I think it's funny that he's just like, you know what? I'm going to throw out the rule book and I'm going to just make up something that never happened that we wish happened. You know, this is what we wish would happen. And there's something gratifying in that. You know,
Exactly.
Yeah.
The ending goes like this: the murder was over. You know, they killed the Charles Manson dudes,
right.
and then the police brutally Tarantino style, in Tarantino fashion, he went with a bang. He did all out.
Oh yeah.
So when Sharon Tate was like, "Is that you?"
Rick Dalton?
Yeah, that's me.
Is everybody okay?
Yes, Sharon. Everybody's fine.
Yeah, come in.
Rick, would you like to come up to the house for a drink and meet my other friends?
Yeah, sure.
And then the camera moves up, goes on top of the roof, and now you can see Sharon Tate come out. And then when they get into the house, it just says "Once Upon a Time in Hollywood," which sends the message that, like, I wish that once upon a time Sharon Tate didn't die or something like that.
It's kind of like, you know, Tarantino's love letter to Hollywood and love letter to movies. So in that way, you know, I can definitely appreciate it. And the fact that he didn't put himself in any of those scenes at the end makes it even better.
Because Tarantino's like, "Hey man, yeah, no, all right, yeah, here we go there, okay, but he's all over the place when he's acting. But I have never seen an ending wherein I saw the title at the end and it gave me an emotional release.
Right. Yeah, that was a very clever choice.
He utilized the title. The title actually means something, and you didn't know that the title meant something until the end.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah, that's what he was trying to say.
Right.
And that's what makes him Tarantino. I have not seen a director do that to an audience. He knows how the audience will react to every shot, to every dialogue line.
I think he's gotten better. I think definitely, you know, I shouldn't judge him on Reservoir Dogs. It was his first movie. It was his first attempt. And, you know, I think even critics then said, you know, this guy's showing promise. You know?
Because we love